When my daughter Sophia looked me in the eyes and said, "Find somewhere else to die, mother. You're dead weight now," I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. But I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just packed my bags like the obedient mother I'd always been. What Sophia didn't know was that in exactly 72 hours, she'd be on her knees begging me for help. And this time, I wasn't going to be so easy to manipulate. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because this story is about to show you that sometimes the quiet woman in the corner is the most dangerous person in the room. My name is Catherine Monroe. I'm 65 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had everything figured out. My husband Thomas had just passed away after a sudden stroke at 69. We'd been married for 41 years. He was my college sweetheart, my business partner, and honestly, my entire world. When he died, I felt like half of me had been buried with him. Sophia arrived at the funeral dressed in designer black, her crocodile tears perfectly timed for the cameras. Yes, cameras. My daughter had become quite the social media influencer, documenting her authentic journey through life for her 2 million followers. She hugged me tight that day, whispering how we'd get through this together, how I'd never be alone. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my door with her husband Marcus and a team of movers. "Mother, we need to talk about your living situation," she announced, walking past me into the foyer like she owned the place, which, according to her, she apparently did. I stood there confused, watching strangers begin wrapping my furniture in protective plastic. "Sophia, what's happening? Why are there movers in my house?" Marcus stepped forward, that fake sympathetic smile plastered across his face. He was a corporate lawyer, the kind who could justify anything with enough legal jargon and condescension. "Catherine, Thomas's will was very clear. The estate passes to Sophia. All assets, including this property." The words didn't make sense. Thomas and I had gone over our estate planning together just last year. We'd specifically structured everything to ensure I'd be taken care of first, with Sophia inheriting after my death. "That's impossible," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Thomas would never leave me with nothing," Sophia laughed. Actually laughed. It was a sound I'd never heard from her before, cold and sharp like breaking ice. "Mother, let's be honest. You never understood financial matters. That's why Daddy handled everything. He knew I'd be a better steward of his legacy. A better steward." My daughter was talking about her father's life's work like it was a corporate acquisition. "Sophia, there must be some mistake. We need to call the lawyer, review the documents." "We did review them," Marcus interrupted, pulling papers from his briefcase. "These are copies for your records. As you can see, the will is quite clear. Sophia inherits everything immediately. The house, the investments, the business holdings, all of it." I took the papers with shaking hands. The legal language swam before my eyes, but certain phrases jumped out. Sole beneficiary. Total assets approximately 33 million, effective immediately upon death. "But where am I supposed to go?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Sophia was already on her phone, probably scheduling her next Instagram post about difficult family decisions. She looked up briefly. "There are some lovely senior communities in the area, Mother. Very affordable. I'm sure you'll find something suitable." Affordable. My daughter was inheriting $33 million, and she was suggesting I look for affordable housing. That's when she said it. I was standing there in shock, watching my entire life being packed into boxes by strangers, and Sophia turned to me with genuine annoyance in her eyes. "Honestly, Mother, you need to find somewhere else to die. You're useless now. Daddy's gone, the money's mine, and I have my own family to think about. You're just dead weight, dead weight." Her own mother, the woman who'd sat up with her through every childhood illness, who'd paid for her college education, who'd postponed my own career dreams to support Thomas while he built the business that was now making her a multimillionaire. I packed 2 suitcases. 41 years of marriage, 65 years of life, all fitting into 2 medium-sized suitcases and a cardboard box of photo albums that Sophia said she didn't have room for in her new mansion. Marcus drove me to the Riverside Motel, a place that charged $45 a night and asked no questions. He handed me $300 in cash like he was tipping a valet. "This should hold you over for a week," he said. "Sophia will arrange a small monthly allowance once we've sorted through Thomas's accounts. A small monthly allowance. From my own money, from my own husband's estate, after they left, I sat on the motel bed that smelled faintly of cigarettes and despair. And I did something I hadn't done in 41 years of marriage. I opened Thomas's secret phone. You see, I'd found that phone 6 months before Thomas died. It was hidden in his workshop, tucked inside a false bottom in his toolbox. The kind of hiding place you only find when you're looking for something else. I'd been searching for a screwdriver and instead found a smartphone I'd never seen before. At the time, I'd been too afraid to look, too afraid of what I might find. Was Thomas having an affair? Was there another family? Some secret life I knew nothing about? So I'd put it back and tried to forget about it. But now, sitting in that depressing motel room with nowhere else to turn, I pulled that phone from my purse where I'd hidden it after grabbing it from the workshop during my rushed packing. The phone turned on immediately. No password. Thomas had never been good with technology security. What I found made my blood run cold. There were hundreds of voice memos, thousands of documents, detailed records going back 15 years. And as I started listening and reading, I realized something incredible. My husband hadn't just been a successful businessman. He'd been documenting everything because he knew. He knew exactly what Sophia was. The first voice memo was dated 3 years ago. Recording number 187. Today, Sophia asked again about updating the will. 3rd time this month. She's getting more aggressive, suggesting I'm not thinking clearly about the future. I'm 66 years old and sharper than I've ever been, but she's planting seeds of doubt with everyone. I need to protect Catherine. She doesn't see what I see in our daughter. I sat there frozen as Thomas's voice filled the room. He sounded tired, worried, but absolutely certain. Another memo from 2 years ago. Sophia brought Marcus to dinner tonight. He spent the entire evening asking detailed questions about asset structures and inheritance laws. They think they're being subtle. They're not. I've started working with a different attorney. Catherine can never know until it's time. But the worst one, the one that made me actually gasp out loud, was from 8 months ago. I had lunch with Dr. Reynolds today for my annual checkup. Clean bill of health. Sophia was waiting in the parking lot when I left. She didn't see me, but I saw her talking to someone in a dark sedan. I got the license plate. I'm probably being paranoid, but after everything I've discovered about her business dealings, about Marcus's connections, I'm going to be very careful about what I eat and drink around them from now on. Thomas had suspected. He'd actually suspected that our daughter might try to harm him. I kept listening, kept reading. The documents were even more revealing. Thomas had hired private investigators. He'd discovered that Sophia's influencer success was built on lies and fraud. She was running an elaborate pyramid scheme through her wellness brand, scamming her followers out of thousands of dollars. Marcus was helping her hide the money in offshore accounts, but that wasn't even the worst part. Thomas had discovered that Sophia had been forging documents for years. She'd already stolen nearly $2 million from the family business by creating fake invoices and vendor contracts. She'd been planning to contest his will the moment he died, using forged documents to claim he was mentally incompetent. And then I found the final voice memo, recorded just 1 week before Thomas died. If Catherine is listening to this, it means I'm gone, and Sophia has probably already made her move. Catherine, my darling, I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you any of this while I was alive. I couldn't risk Sophia finding out that I knew. But I need you to understand something crucial. The will she has is fake. I knew she'd forge one, so I let her think she'd succeeded. The real will is with James Patterson at Patterson & Associates in the city. He's expecting you. Everything goes to you, Catherine. Every single penny. And there's more. I've documented all of Sophia's crimes. Everything you need to destroy her is on this phone. I just pray you find it before she destroys you. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Thomas had known. He'd known everything, and he'd been protecting me from beyond the grave. But there was something else in his tone during that last recording. Something that made my stomach turn. He didn't sound like a man preparing for natural death. He sounded like a man who knew time was running out. I went back through the final month of voice memos. Thomas had been meticulous about documenting what he ate, who he saw, how he felt. And in those final weeks, there was a pattern. Every time he had dinner at Sophia's house, he felt sick afterward, dizzy, disoriented. Probably just stress, he told himself on the recordings. But I knew better now. My daughter hadn't just stolen my inheritance. She'd murdered my husband. The stroke that killed Thomas hadn't been random. It had been induced, and I was going to prove it. The next morning, I took a bus downtown to Patterson and Associates. James Patterson was a distinguished man in his 70s, with kind eyes that lit up with recognition when I gave my name. "Mrs. Monroe," he said, taking my hands warmly. "I've been trying to reach you for 3 weeks. Your daughter said you were traveling abroad, dealing with grief." "My daughter," I said carefully, "has been telling a lot of lies." I spent 3 hours in James Patterson's office. What Thomas had created wasn't just a will. It was a complete legal fortress designed to protect me and expose Sophia. The real will left everything to me. Not just the money and the house, but also complete control of the family business, which was worth considerably more than the $33 million Sophia thought she was inheriting. Thomas had structured it so that Sophia would receive a trust fund, accessible only after meeting certain conditions, including maintaining a relationship with me and demonstrating financial responsibility. But Thomas had gone further. He'd created a separate document, sealed and to be opened only if Sophia contested the will or if I was removed from the family home under suspicious circumstances. He was very specific about that phrase, James said. "Your husband believed Sophia would try to force you out immediately before you could discover the truth." "She did exactly that," I confirmed. "Told me the house was hers and gave me $300 to find somewhere to die." James's expression darkened. "Then we need to open the sealed document." What was inside changed everything. Thomas had not only documented Sophia's fraud and theft, but he'd also collected evidence about his own poisoning. He'd been having his blood tested privately for months, sending samples to an independent lab under a false name. The results showed consistent exposure to a drug called digoxin, which in high doses can trigger fatal heart arrhythmias and strokes. Thomas had never been prescribed digoxin, but Sophia's mother-in-law had. Marcus's mother had a heart condition and took it daily. Thomas had even documented several occasions when Sophia had visited his home and had direct access to his food and drinks. "Your husband," James said quietly, "believed your daughter was slowly poisoning him. And the medical evidence supports that conclusion." I felt like I was going to be sick. "Why didn't he go to the police?" "He tried." James pulled out another document. "He filed a report 4 months ago. But without concrete proof that Sophia had access to the medication and intent to harm him, the police said there wasn't enough evidence for an investigation. Your husband was building an airtight case. He just ran out of time. But Thomas had left me everything I needed to finish what he'd started." "There's one more thing," James said, pulling out a small flash drive. "Your husband recorded a video. He said to show it to you when you were ready to fight back." We plugged the drive into James's computer, and there was Thomas. He looked thinner than I remembered, sitting in his workshop with tools hanging on the wall behind him. "Hello, my darling Catherine," he began, and I started crying immediately. "If you're watching this, I'm gone, and Sophia has shown you exactly who she is. I'm sorry I left you to face this alone, but I trust you to be stronger than she ever expected." Thomas spent 20 minutes explaining everything. The fraud, the theft, the poisoning. He detailed every piece of evidence and where to find additional proof. But then his tone changed. "Catherine, I need you to do something that goes against every instinct you have as a mother. I need you to let Sophia think she's won. Let her have the house. Let her believe she's inherited everything. Because she's going to make mistakes, and when she does, we're going to destroy her completely." The video continued with specific instructions. Thomas had set up a series of legal traps, financial tripwires designed to spring shut the moment Sophia tried to access certain accounts or sell certain properties. Every move she made would generate documentation of her fraud. "Give her 72 hours, Thomas said on the video. In 72 hours, she'll have committed enough crimes to guarantee federal charges. And then, my love, you take everything back and you make sure she never hurts anyone again." The video ended with Thomas looking directly into the camera. "I love you, Catherine. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. But I know you're going to finish this. You're the strongest person I've ever known, even if you don't see it yourself yet." James Patterson closed the laptop. "Your husband was a brilliant man. He's created a situation where Sophia will literally incriminate herself just by claiming her inheritance. What do I do now? I asked. Now? James smiled. Now we wait exactly 72 hours like Thomas instructed. And then we watch your daughter's world collapse. I spent those 3 days in that motel room, monitoring Sophia's social media and watching her moves through the tracking software Thomas had installed. Every account access, every document she opened, every transaction she attempted was being recorded and sent directly to James Patterson's office. Sophia was moving fast. Too fast. Within 24 hours, she'd tried to access all of Thomas's bank accounts. She'd contacted real estate agents about selling the house. She'd even started liquidating some of the business assets. Every single action was illegal. Every single action was being documented. On day 2, she made her biggest mistake. She tried to access Thomas's primary business account, the one that held $8 million in operating capital. But Thomas had set up a special protocol. The moment anyone tried to access that account without the proper authorization codes, it triggered an automatic investigation by the bank's fraud department and simultaneously notified the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Sophia had no idea she'd just painted a target on her back. I watched it all unfold from my motel room, Thomas's phone in my hand, feeling like I was watching a chess game where my daughter was playing checkers. On the afternoon of day 3, exactly 72 hours after she'd thrown me out, Sophia posted an Instagram story that made my blood boil. She was standing in my kitchen, doing a video about embracing change and stepping into your power after loss. Sometimes, she told her 2 million followers, we have to make difficult decisions about family. My mother is going through a challenging transition right now, and while it breaks my heart, I know this is what's best for everyone. She needs to find her own path, and I need to honor my father's wishes for his legacy. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Her followers had no idea they were watching a woman commit multiple felonies while pretending to be a grieving daughter. That evening, James Patterson called. It's time, Catherine. Are you ready? I thought about Thomas, about the life we'd built together, about the daughter I'd loved who'd turned into someone I didn't recognize. I'm ready, I said. Let's finish this. The next morning, I walked into the police station with James Patterson, a federal agent named Sarah Chen, and enough evidence to send Sophia to prison for the next 20 years. Agent Chen had been working white-collar crimes for 15 years. When she saw Thomas's documentation, she actually whistled. Mrs. Monroe, your husband built a case that most investigators would kill for. We have her on fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and possibly murder. Possibly? I asked. We'll need to exhume your husband's body to confirm the poisoning, Agent Chen said gently. I know that's difficult, but the tissue samples will show definitive proof of digoxin poisoning if our theory is correct. I authorized the exhumation that afternoon. Thomas had even left instructions for that, knowing we'd need it. While we waited for the medical examiner's report, Agent Chen's team executed search warrants on Sophia's home, Marcus's office, and several properties they'd purchased with stolen money. What they found exceeded everyone's expectations. Sophia hadn't just stolen from Thomas's business. She'd been running an elaborate fraud scheme through her wellness brand for 3 years. Her miracle supplements were causing actual harm to people. Her investment opportunities were pyramid schemes that had defrauded over 500 people out of more than $4 million. Marcus had been helping her hide the money, setting up shell corporations and offshore accounts. He'd even used his position at his law firm to create fake legal documents for several of their schemes. The arrests happened on day 5. Agent Chen decided to make them public, partly because of the scope of the fraud, partly because Sophia's social media presence meant her followers deserved to know the truth. I watched from James Patterson's office as federal agents entered my house that Sophia had stolen while she was filming a morning yoga routine for Instagram. The video would later go viral. Sophia in her designer yoga outfit, talking about gratitude and abundance, when federal agents walked into frame. Sophia Monroe Hayes, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally fear. Real, genuine fear. "This is a mistake," she said, looking directly at the camera still recording. "I haven't done anything wrong." But they had already found the digoxin in her bathroom cabinet. They'd found the forged documents on her computer. They'd found evidence of every crime Thomas had documented and several more he hadn't discovered. Marcus was arrested at his law office. According to Agent Chen, he tried to run and was tackled by 2 federal agents in the parking garage. His law firm fired him within the hour. That evening, Sophia called me from jail. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom," her voice was small, broken, nothing like the confident influencer persona. "Mom, please. This is all a misunderstanding. I need help. I need bail money. Mom, please, you have to help me. I'm your daughter." I saved the voicemail, just in case I ever started to feel guilty about what came next. The medical examiner's report came back 1 week later. Thomas had been poisoned, exactly as he'd suspected. High levels of digoxin in his tissue samples, administered over approximately 6 months. Enough to cause the stroke that killed him, but done gradually enough to avoid immediate suspicion. My daughter had murdered her father. For money. For $33 million she thought she was inheriting. The irony was devastating. If she'd just waited, if she'd just been a decent daughter, she would have eventually inherited a significant trust fund. Not immediately, and not without conditions, but she would have been taken care of. Instead, she'd committed murder and multiple felonies for money that was never actually going to be hers. Agent Chen filed additional charges. First-degree murder, premeditated. They were seeking life in prison without parole. Sophia's lawyer tried to negotiate. Marcus's family tried to make deals. But the evidence was overwhelming. Thomas had built a case so airtight that even the best defense attorneys in the country couldn't find loopholes. The trial lasted 6 weeks. It was covered by every major news outlet. Sophia's Instagram fraud, the murder, the stolen inheritance, it all became public. Her followers turned on her en masse. The hashtag, "You're Sophia the Scammer," trended for days. I sat in the courtroom every single day, watching my daughter try to manipulate the jury the same way she'd manipulated everyone else her entire life. But juries don't respond well to wealthy influencers who murder their parents for inheritance money. The prosecution presented Thomas's evidence methodically. Every voice memo, every document, every piece of proof that Sophia had been systematically stealing from him while planning his murder. Most damaging evidence was a text message exchange between Sophia and Marcus from 6 months before Thomas's death. "Sophia, he's not going to change the will. We need to accelerate the timeline, Marcus. Are you sure about this? If we get caught, Sophia, we won't get caught. He trusts me completely. And once he's gone, Catherine will be easy to handle. She doesn't understand any of this financial stuff. Marcus, what about your mother? She'll contest everything, Sophia. My mother won't do anything. She's been a doormat her entire life. She'll take whatever we give her and be grateful for it." Reading those messages in court, hearing the prosecutor detail how Sophia had viewed me as weak and manipulable, something inside me crystallized. Any remaining maternal guilt evaporated. This wasn't my daughter anymore. This was a stranger who'd killed my husband, but the prosecution had saved their biggest revelation for the final week of trial. Thomas hadn't died from his first poisoning attempt. He'd survived 2 earlier attempts that had made him sick, but not fatally ill. And he documented both of them. The first attempt happened on Sophia's birthday dinner, 10 months before his death. Thomas had felt violently ill afterward and had gone to the emergency room. They'd treated him for food poisoning, but Thomas had saved samples of his blood. The lab results showed digoxin exposure. The second attempt was at Christmas, 7 months before his death. Same pattern. Severe illness, emergency room visit, blood samples saved, more digoxin exposure. Sophia had tried to kill Thomas 3 times. She'd failed twice and succeeded on the 3rd attempt. The jury took 4 hours to deliberate. They found her guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and conspiracy. Marcus received a shorter sentence, 12 years, for his role in the fraud schemes and for helping to cover up the murder, even though prosecutors couldn't prove he knew about the poisoning in advance. At sentencing, the judge looked at Sophia with undisguised contempt. "Ms. Hayes, I've been on the bench for 30 years. I have never seen a case that combined such calculated cruelty with such breathtaking stupidity. You murdered your father. You defrauded hundreds of victims, and you tried to steal from your mother because you believed she was too weak to stop you. You were wrong on every count." He sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 60 additional years for the fraud charges. Sophia cried and begged and claimed she was innocent. But I noticed she never once looked at me, not during the entire trial. She couldn't face what she'd done. As they led her away in handcuffs, she finally turned toward me. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and I smiled. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my house, Thomas's house, my house now fully and legally mine. I'd renovated it completely. Every room where Sophia had walked, every space she'd tried to claim, I'd remade it all. The business was thriving under my management. Turns out, I understood financial matters just fine when people stopped condescending to me. I'd not only recovered the $2 million Sophia had stolen, but had grown the company by 30%. The $4 million Sophia had defrauded from her followers. I'd established a victim restitution fund. Every single person she'd scammed was getting their money back, with interest. It was the right thing to do, and it was what Thomas would have wanted. I'd also started a foundation in Thomas's name, dedicated to helping victims of elder financial abuse and adult children fraud. Because I'd learned something important through this nightmare. I wasn't the only mother who'd been targeted by her own child. Agent. Chen told me that elder financial abuse was one of the fastest-growing crimes in America, and that adult children were the most common perpetrators. Millions of seniors were being manipulated, stolen from, and abused by the people who were supposed to love them most. Thomas's case, my case, had become a catalyst for legal reform. Several states had passed stronger elder protection laws because of the publicity around Sophia's trial. I'd testified before Congress about the need for better safeguards. I'd become, in a strange way, a voice for the voiceless. For all the mothers and fathers who'd been dismissed as senile or incompetent by children who just wanted their inheritance. But the most important change was internal. I'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. I'd stopped making myself small to make other people comfortable. I'd discovered that the quiet woman everyone underestimated was actually the most dangerous person in the room when properly motivated. Sophia wrote me letters from prison, dozens of them. At first, they were angry, claiming I'd betrayed her, that I'd destroyed her life out of spite. Then they became desperate, begging for forgiveness, promising she'd changed. I didn't respond to any of them. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. My therapist asked me if I felt guilty. If I blamed myself for how Sophia turned out, no, I told her honestly. I loved her. I gave her everything I had. But at some point, she made choices that had nothing to do with her upbringing and everything to do with who she chose to become. I'm not responsible for her crimes. Still, late at night sometimes, I'd think about the little girl who used to crawl into my lap and tell me she loved me. I'd wonder where that child had gone, when exactly she'd transformed into someone capable of murder. But then I'd remember Thomas's voice on those recordings. His fear, his determination to protect me even after death. And I'd remember that I hadn't destroyed Sophia's life. She destroyed it herself. 1 year after the trial, I received an unexpected visitor. Marcus's mother, Elizabeth Hayes, the woman whose heart medication had been used to poison my husband. She was in her 80s. Frail and guilt-ridden. "Mrs. Monroe," she said, tears streaming down her face. I had no idea my medication was being used to harm anyone. If I'd known, if I'd even suspected. "I know," I told her gently. "This wasn't your fault. Marcus was always ambitious," she continued. "But I never thought he'd be capable of something like this. I've been going through his childhood things, trying to understand where I went wrong, and I found something. Something I think you need to see." She handed me a journal, Marcus's journal from college, when he'd first started dating Sophia. The entries were disturbing. Marcus had specifically targeted Sophia because of her family wealth. He'd researched Thomas's business, calculated potential inheritance values, and planned out a long-term strategy to access that money. He'd manipulated Sophia, encouraged her worst impulses, and slowly transformed her from a spoiled but relatively harmless young woman into a criminal. He made her worse, Elizabeth whispered. I'm not saying Sophia was innocent. She made her own choices. But Marcus fed every bad impulse she had. He turned her into a monster. I read through the journal entries with growing horror. Marcus had been planning this for 15 years. Long before they were married, he'd been calculating how to steal from my family. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Elizabeth looked at me with devastating sadness. Because you need to know that your daughter, as terrible as her crimes were, was also a victim. Marcus destroyed her as surely as he helped her destroy your husband. I thought you should know that. After she left, I sat with that journal for hours. It didn't change anything legally. Sophia was still guilty of murder, still serving life in prison. But it did change something in my heart. My daughter had made terrible choices. But she'd also been manipulated by someone she trusted. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it helped me understand how she'd gotten there. I still didn't write her back. I still didn't visit her in prison. But I did add her to my prayers at night, hoping that somewhere in that cell she might find redemption, not forgiveness. Not from me, but perhaps peace with herself. 2 years after Thomas's death, I attended a conference on elder financial abuse. I was one of the keynote speakers, sharing my story with an audience of lawyers, law enforcement, and victim advocates. After my speech, a woman approached me. She was in her 70s, well-dressed, confident. Mrs. Monroe, thank you for your courage, she said. My son tried to do the same thing to me last year. He forged documents, tried to have me declared incompetent, wanted to control my assets. But because of your case, because of the publicity around what happened to you, I knew what to watch for. I was able to stop him before it went too far. What happened? I asked. I cut him off completely, she said simply, and I'm living my best life without him. You taught me that family isn't worth sacrificing yourself for. Over the next hour, 3 more people approached with similar stories. Adult children who'd tried to steal from them, family members who'd forged documents or manipulated them, and all of them said the same thing. My story had given them the courage to fight back. That's when I realized the true power of what Thomas had done. He hadn't just protected me. He'd created a roadmap that could help thousands of other seniors protect themselves. Standing in that conference hall, listening to people thank me for surviving, I finally understood what Thomas had been trying to tell me in that final video. I was stronger than anyone had given me credit for, including myself. That evening, I went home to my house, poured a glass of Thomas's favorite wine, and sat in the garden we'd planted together 40 years ago. We did it, I whispered to the wind, hoping somehow he could hear me. We protected them all, every parent who's afraid of their own children, every senior who thinks they're powerless. We showed them how to fight back, and somewhere, I like to think Thomas was smiling, because the quiet woman everyone underestimated had become exactly what he always knew she could be, unstoppable. Thank you for watching this story. If you've ever felt invisible, powerless, or underestimated by your own family, I want you to know something important. You are stronger than you think. Don't wait for permission to protect yourself. Don't wait for someone else to save you. You have everything you need already inside you. Hit that subscribe button if this story moved you. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better? Your story matters. Your voice matters. And you matter. Until next time, remember, the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. Never mistake kindness for weakness.